Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Power. This is your host, Jeffrey Pinzon. And today, man, I'm super excited because I'm going to have the pleasure of interviewing one of my first coaches when I was in the alarm industry. So I bumped into him through YouTube. He had some videos on YouTube. I'm constantly searching on how to get better in sales, how to get better in communications. And I just started searching for alarm sales coaches, stuff like that. And I bumped into him. I started reaching out to him. We connected, and he became one of my first coaches. I remember at the time I was earning about $4,000 a month, and he took me from earning $4,000 a month to making $4,000 a week. And it just has grown tremendously from there. So I have the great pleasure of interviewing Mark Tosoni. He's an entrepreneur. He's an author of many books. He's a coach, as I said earlier. He's a real estate investor. He has taken companies that from 800,000 earning a year to now earning 2 million a month in under 12 months. So talk about exponential growth. So I'm super excited of having him here because he's a professional when it comes to sales. I've learned tremendously from him. And I'm super excited because he has a lot of knowledge, a lot of information that all the listeners that are watching our podcast, you guys could benefit from it 100%. So I'm super excited, Mark. Thank you for taking the time all the way from Miami. Thank you for coming out here and being part of our Unleash Our Power podcast.
Glad to be here, Jeffrey. Super
Thank you.
psyched to
Thank
do
you.
this.
Excited to have you here. By the way, guys, this episode is brought to you by Unleash Your Solar Energy. UIS Energy is a company that specializes in teaching families on how to go solar the right way. They not only talk about the good, but more importantly, they focus on the bad and the ugly side of solar. How ugly it could get when things are not done the right way. So it really matters on who you're working with when it comes to you going solar. So with that said, Mark, let's jump right into it. Can you tell the audience a little bit about who you are, your background, where you're from, so like that they get to know you a little bit?
Outstanding. 100%. I come from a city called Springfield, Massachusetts, which is, some of you might know it, where the Basketball Hall of Fame is. I went to school in Springfield. I played hockey growing up. Hockey's a big thing in the North. And, my family, my father comes from, like an Italian neighborhood. And he kind of got us out of the neighborhood. We were a whopping 3 miles down the street from the neighborhood he grew up in, and he went on to get formally educated, went on to get his PhD, had a big belief in education. So growing up, it was hockey. It was in the streets playing. It was fighting in the streets. Typical kid stuff of my generation. I was very fortunate to be brought up around this tribe of Italians because they really are good communicators, and they communicate with their entire body. And so I learned something from that. I learned that, when you use your body to express yourself, you can get your points across and you can engage people in conversations. My father was a very dynamic guy. He's no longer with us, but really, really dynamic storyteller. But he was scared to death of entrepreneurship. My father would, he would never invest in anything. He was all about a steady job, get benefits, take care of your family. That was kind of his mentality. So little did he realize he had an entrepreneur on his hands. I started literally stealing things and selling them, by the fourth grade. So I was already starting that entrepreneurial process, and they didn't know what to do or how to deal with this kid, and getting into certain sorts of trouble. But at the end of the day, my focus as a kid was just selling stuff. I wanted to make money, and I knew that from a young age. So that's a little bit about the background. Went on to play a year of college hockey outside of Boston, and learned a lot from that game. A lot of discipline came from that game, teamwork, leadership, being coachable, which is huge. Not only being a leader, but great leaders can be led by those they lead, and learning how to be led. So hockey was big rewards for me in the long term when I finally started getting into business. it really, really showed itself. So that's a little about the background.
That's interesting. So you touched on a few things. I was the same way when I was a little kid. I started stealing stuff in elementary, got in trouble for it. I always wanted to get something and get it and then sell it for more. Since I was a little kid, I was always into entrepreneurship. So I could relate to that story. So how did that help you out when you started getting out of college into the entrepreneur and sales? How did that support you?
When I went to college, I didn't want to go to begin with. My father was big on formal education, so he literally just about stuffed me in the college. I didn't want to go. I wanted to start selling, and a friend of mine that I had met through his wife, or it was his girlfriend at the time. He was a car salesman, and he used to pull up, and I would see him in these, back in the day, in these brand new Corvettes and Chevy Z28s, and these like hot cars back in the day. And I was always like, whoa, that's amazing. I was brought up, just outside of the neighborhood. I was used to seeing guys in these fancy cars and stuff. So I was impressed with that, and I became friends with him. And so in college, when I was in college, I'm literally thinking to myself, I'm going to be making more than all these professors, all of them. So I barely even went. I wound up with a whopping 1.8 grade point average. Had a lot of fun with the girls, playing hockey. The girls would, there were parties and they would follow the team. Got into a lot of fights. And that year of college for me was just like, it was miserable. It was absolutely miserable. Wound up with that 1.8 grade point average. Got really good at ping pong. But at the end of the day, I was dreaming about making money. And by the end of that second semester, I was like, I'm done. I'm going to make money. I'm going to figure this out. And so when I quit college and got into car sales, it really, really disappointed my father. And a lot of us
Mm.
might not realize this, but we do things to either please our parent or we rebel against it. And I was rebelling against it. I was a big believer in education, but not the formal education that my father was trying to get me. And so I rebelled against it. But as soon as that year of college was done, I started selling cars, and I was now into my new college, my new alternative education, which included, older men who knew how to sell. It got into books and studying, seminars. Back in the day, there was cassette tapes, listening to these cassette tapes and, turning my car into mobile university. And I was just really, really hungry at a very young age. I wanted to become rich.
So, how was that like? Because I know you said that you left college, you didn't like college, but yet you started studying seminars, listening to cassette tapes in your car. What made you do that, right? Because right there, you're still studying, right? It's kind of like the same thing that you're doing in college, but now you don't have a professor telling you that you got to submit a paperwork with the results, but you still took the time to listen and do the work and listen to cassette tapes. How was that like? Why did you do that?
I can remember being in that car dealership. I was the youngest. I was the youngest in there, and so it was all men. And I was brought up in a way that you respect your elders, right?
Mhm.
Like that respect was a big thing in my culture. So now I'm dealing with these men, and they're literally like in a car dealership. They're stepping in front of you and taking the customer and doing stuff like this. And there was one old guy there in particular who would do this, and he would just it would just piss me off, and I didn't know how to confront him. And so really out of frustration and anger, I literally turned that anger and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna wipe the floor with all you people. So it just built some like this desire inside of me. I remember going to the bookstore and I'm walking through the bookstore. I really hadn't read a book since probably grade school. Because from grade school to that point, it was just, I wasn't like into studying or anything like that at that point. But I'm walking through the bookstore and I had that off the shelf experience. And it was a Tony Robbins book called uh, Unlimited Power.
The
Yeah,
power
Unlimited
within.
Power. Yeah, so whatever, it goes way back. I don't even remember the title, The Power Within or whatever. And so that book jumped off the shelf to me. And I can remember I was 20 years old. I devoured that book. My sales manager was laughing at me. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to make more than all you people, including the owner. Like now, I'm really getting pissed. And they're laughing at me for studying, and I'm like, you're not understanding my dream. You do not understand where I'm going. It's like they just didn't get it. And I just sat in there and studied and studied and studied. And when I read that book, something like awakened within me. Like I
Mm-hmm.
suddenly realized what I intuitively knew, that I could become great. I could become wealthy. I could make a difference in the world. I could do the things I really wanted to do. But I had a lot of work to do because although I was very good at the game of hockey, in the game of sales, I was not very confident. I was somewhat confident, but I wasn't like off the chain confident. It didn't come natural to me. Wasn't the easiest thing to me. I'm a little more introverted person. I do these calls and talks and this stuff, but when you see me in my own environment, I'm to myself. I'm really an introverted person. I'm not like the typical born salesman. So I had to learn to grow at this, but I did have an advantage, and I figured out my advantage real quickly. And that's that I was sincere. I was honest, and I knew that people liked that. I
Mm-hmm.
knew people liked sincerity. I figured out real quick that even though I didn't even shave yet, and even though these guys are older than me, they're better than me, they know what they're doing. I don't. When I get in front of a customer, if I can just be me and just be like real sincere with them, I can make some leeway. So that's kind of what was happening back at that time in the dealership, and then starting to study, and I've never stopped studying since. I don't know how many books I've read or programs I've been to, but it's a lot. I've absorbed a lot of information. One thing I do want to say here for the listeners is it's very important to get educated. Okay, to education will take you, from where you or your people, where your tribe came from. It'll take you to the next level. But what is very important in and around education is that you do the work, so that
Mm-hmm.
you do the action steps, whether that's setting a goal, whether that's working through one of your emotional issues, or whether that's a new sales technique. Practice, drill, rehearse over and over again. Tom Hopkins, sales trainer back in the day, he used to say that: practice, drill, and rehearse. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't do the work, you don't integrate. And if you don't integrate, you don't transform. And so ultimately, what you really are after, what most people are after, is a new higher vision you have of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to transform to get to that new higher vision. The way that you create that transformation is by doing the work. You integrate. When you integrate, eventually you come to a place where you transform. And that's what happened to me. That's really my story.
That's awesome because yeah, you have to do the work, right? You talked about you didn't like talking to people, you were an introvert, but somehow, some way you made that your challenge, and I could sense that from you. When somebody tells you that you're not gonna do something, you use that to your advantage. People were laughing at you at the car dealership. You were the youngest one there, right? So now you use that as fuel for you to do the work, for you to get prepared. And I gotta say, Mark, because when I started coaching with you, that's one thing that I loved about you, that you are sincere when it comes to sales. And sales has a bad stigma when it comes to people, right? Because they feel that they're being sold, right? They're being hustled, right? They're being taken advantage of. And when I was searching for a coach, I'm like, man, I want somebody that's gonna guide me in the right direction. Yeah, I've been in sales my whole life, but I knew that I still had to get better. I knew I had to get better at communication and being sincere 100% and creating a win-win, right? And that's what you're all about, right? There's a lot of salespeople, a lot of sales coaches in different industries where they're creating a lose-win, right? And you're all about creating win-wins all around. What sparked that? Because I know that after you were in the car dealership, you transitioned into alarms, right? And I know
Yes.
that you had I know a little bit about that story where you were getting trained by someone. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, so for the first 5 years of my career, I struggled profusely, like really, really difficult struggle. And my upbringing was interesting. My parents are Italian, but my father was brought up in the neighborhood, so his values were very different. My mother was not brought up in the neighborhood, although she's all Italian. So my mother had these like real religious values, like they were virgins when they got married, this type of thing. And so my mother had this high morality, and my father wasn't that he was an immoral guy, but he was more of a street guy. So I had these different values, and in the end, I ended up, really modeling my mother and being in integrity and spiritual law and universal law. But long story short, I struggled like crazy for 5 years, man. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I think it's by the grace of God that I made it, because there was an intervention at age 25. And you know how all of us, we have parts of our parents within us. And, so at about age 24, I was struggling so bad, I was literally contemplating, going to the dark side. And of course, I grew up with all these kids who were now on the dark side. And it was such an easy transition to walk into that world if I wanted to. And I was so desperate for money, and I had a wife and a child at home, and I just was really, really struggling. I was dealing with a lot of stuff. The rejection was hitting me. I had a lot of my own internal turmoil, and I was just struggling like crazy. And then I was literally, like, in my mind, I was sort of praying, if you want to call it that, or sending out thought that I just need help. I need help. I need somebody. If somebody could just help me and believe in me, I know I could turn this around. And by God's grace, man, my father was also an athlete, and he was into he was in you know he was like a football player growing up and lifted weights, and he was into arm wrestling. And one of the guys he trained with went on to become a world champion, sponsored by Budweiser, and he was an intense dude. Well, his kid brother was in sales. His kid brother could have been my older brother. So we had met when we were just kids. And long story short, my father reconnected us, even though he was really, really disappointed that I got into car sales and that I dropped out of college. He was always watching out for me. He connected me to Mike. We had been connected as kids, reconnected us, and Mike started mentoring me. And I would just go visit with him. I was like 23 years old at the time. This is when I was struggling in sales. He just had the answers for everything. Think about it, shop around, one day decision. My head's screwed up. I'm depressed. Whatever the problem was, Mike knew the answer. And so one day I go and visit him in his office. I'm like 25 years old. And he goes, "You see that box right there? There's this box. It's a box like this." I go, "Yeah, what is it?" He goes, "That's a barometric alarm system. It works off air pressure." And at the time, this is 1991, I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing," right? And I'm all impressed with this. He's like, "I just sold 3 of them. I'm starting an alarm company, and I want you to join me." And with zero thought, no thought at all, I'm like, "I'm in. I'm in. Let's go. Let's do this." And so within literally the next month, Mike and I were in business together. And so I didn't only have the opportunity to get into business, but I had the opportunity to be mentored by my partner. Now, that wasn't easy. There's stories that go along with that as well. But that changed my entire trajectory for the rest of my life. And one of the reasons I do this work is because I really feel like that was a spiritual intervention in my life. And it turned me around. Within 3 years, I'd become a millionaire. I was making a high six-figure income, and I was just crushing it. Mike said, "Go left," I went left. Mike said, "Go right." It was like a new hockey coach. He said, "Go left, go left, right, go right, do this, train that guy, run that lead, do this." Whatever he said, I didn't even question it. Like a Marine, I just followed his plays to a T. And the next thing you know, we were killing it. We were making tons of money. By that time, I was like 28 years old. And one day I bought a multifamily house, my first 3 family, and I had to do the financial statement. And I had never even done a financial statement, didn't even know what one was, never learned about one in school. I did the financial statement, and I looked down, and my net worth was 7 figures. And I was like, "Holy crap." I didn't even know it. And I was just like, that is just unbelievable. So I literally had become a millionaire in my 20s. So that was my story with Mike.
Wow. And how important was, like you said, if Mike will tell you go left, you went left. If he will tell you go right, you went right. How important is being coachable, coachability?
It's everything. It's absolutely everything. When I teach on a coachability index. I learned this from a trainer many years ago, and I still use it to this day. And you find people who have a high value for learning, and those are the people who are going to turn things around. People who are not coachable, if their coachability index is low, they just are going to struggle. And it's just that simple, because you don't always know the path. Like if you know what it meant to become a millionaire, you would do it. I didn't know how to do it. So what did I learn about that from Mike? I learned that sales was the master skill. This is the platform of all platforms to build a foundation on. And this is why to this day I work with sales driven entrepreneurs, six-figure sales driven entrepreneurs, and I work with the owners of companies who have sales driven entrepreneurs to scale sales, because it truly is the master skill. So Mike was teaching me the master skill. And as a result of that, boom, things just turned around. So it was just it was an amazing time, an amazing intervention, and I'm incredibly grateful for that time, because my life would have turned out really different had that not happened.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and I'm grateful that it turned out the way that it turned out, because I got to meet you, and you've been a huge contribution in my life and my family. You've helped me tremendously throughout the years, and I'm just grateful for that. So with that said, Mark, like what are some challenges that you encountered throughout the process, right? Because I know that it wasn't all good, all rainbows. You got to seven figures. I know that there was challenges throughout the process, especially mental challenges, right? Because even for myself, I remember when I started making money, my identity wasn't there, so it brought me back down right away to where I was, the position that I was before, and I had
Yeah.
to work on that internally. It wasn't even about the money; it was me shutting myself down. So, what were some challenges that you encounter?
Probably the biggest one that comes to mind, and one of my favorites, was one day about 6 months into our venture in the alarm business. Mike pulls me in the office, and Mike was, I got to tell you something, he's a mofo. This guy, he's 6'4". He's a football player. He was, his father was really abusive, so his older brother, who was the world champion, literally raised him. So Mike learned how to think like a world champion, and he was a very high performance thinker, and I wasn't. I was, insecure. I didn't believe in myself. You know, I just didn't have that level of high performance thinking. There was a lot of mental illness in my family, which is part of my story, and I had to overcome that. A lot of depression, bipolar things that was part of my lineage. Was part of all the people around me, alcoholism and legal drug addictions and this type of thing. But one day Mike pulls me in and he says, "Mark, you're not pulling it off." And I was just in shock. And he says, "Listen, you got two options. You can either quit, leave, get out of here, or you can come in tomorrow and you're going to take less money. So this arrangement is not what it was. It's changing. So you go home tonight and think about that, and then you let me know what you're going to do in the morning." Mike was unbelievable with urgency. He was the most urgent guy I ever met. You didn't have time for nothing. So I need to know in the morning. This is my whole life, my whole career. I need to know in the morning, right? So I go home and I had a karate bag and I had a heavy bag. I had two bags in the north. You got basements. So I went in the basement and just literally kicked the living crap out of the bags. I was so freaking angry. I wanted to kill Mike, right? I was so pissed. And I started to reflect on this, and something happened in this reflection, Jeffrey. This was like another, spiritual intervening moment. Let me just back up a little and then I'll tie the whole thing together. So when I was in high school, I was a sophomore at a high school that was a hockey power. So in Massachusetts, hockey's like a big deal. I made the varsity team as a sophomore, but for the first time in my career of hockey since I was 5 years old, I'm sitting the bench. The coach doesn't tell me what's going on. He wouldn't even talk to me. The coach didn't even talk to me. And I just didn't know what to do. I would go to practice. I would shoot 200 pucks a day. I was like on my game. I was in shape. I could run. I was fast, but he was sitting me out. And so I felt like he was screwing me. And so as the year went on, I got angrier and angrier. Finally, with a week left to go, I walked off the team and I never returned. Next year, I wind up at the rival high school. This was the high school I wanted to go to begin with. Now
Mm.
I'm a starter. So I went from a sitter as a sophomore on the bench to a starter as a junior. Long story short, as a junior, who do we wind up in the tournament with, for the Western Massachusetts tournament, with that team that sat me out? That night, I get chills when I talk about it because that night it was either ride or die. And I knew I would die for that game. And we ended up winning that game 5-4. I got 1 goal and 1 assist. I got 2 points.
Mm.
When it was all over, in hockey, everybody runs in the corner. They skate in the corner and jump on each other, right? I left that huddle and I skated by the other team and I just skated by the coach and I just looked down. And so what happened was this. Here's what happened. As a junior, my anger took me through that. And anger will take you places. However, it's not sustainable. So the anger got me through that game. But here's what I didn't realize, Jeffrey. I also made a decision. I formed a belief as a sophomore, and I didn't know that I formed the belief. And the belief was this: if I give something my all, if I give it everything I have, I'm just going to get let down.
Mm.
And so there it was, fast forward to age 25, my mentor, who had the eye of an eagle when it came to performance, he saw this flaw. He saw this weakness in me. He saw this hesitation. I couldn't see it in myself. I have this epiphany. Oh my God, if I give it my all. Remember, I'm reading and I'm studying. So I know about belief systems. I'm learning about these things. If I give it my all, I'm only going to get let down. I'm not giving it my all. I said, in that moment, I was calling friends earlier. My friends are like, screw Mike, you need to leave. You don't need him. You'll make a lot of money without him. I go in the next morning. The Rocky theme is playing in my mind. And I'm
Mm.
like, you mofo. I am going to huff and puff and blow your freaking doors down. I was always a fighter, Jeffrey, since a very young age. I didn't like to fight, but growing up the way we grew up, it was something you did. And so I developed this spirit, like, I'm going to fight back. And I went in that day and I told Mike, I'll take less money. In the back of my mind, this is what I said: I'm going to shove my success so far up your ass you will never forget.
Mm.
And you know, to this day, every time I buy an apartment building, I'm thinking, what you got, Mike? What you got, bro? Where you at? How many you got? I still think that way to this day, 25 years later, right? Actually, 30 years, 3 decades later. Every time I buy an apartment, I'm like, I hope you're staying up late, Mike. I hope you're going to bed early because I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. Because at the end of the day, and I loved him for doing that. He challenged me, but I hated him for it.
Mm.
And so I stepped up. I went in that next day. I told him I'm staying. It was a new game. And this is what I want to say to your audience. We all have another level. You all have another layer that you can hit, but you got to dig to get it. Sometimes you got to fight to get it. Sometimes you got to redecide in the moment. You got to make another decision, a deeper level decision. Or what I like to call, Jeffrey, is get the F out of my way. I'm willing to die for it type decision. And that's what I did that day. And I began studying even more relentlessly. Now I'm going to Tony Robbins events. I'm studying, I'm listening. I get a micro cassette recorder, which was smaller than a cell phone at the time. They're these little micro cassettes, these little cassettes. I'm following my mentor around with my cassette recorder for 4 years.
Mm.
I hung on every word he said. I knew his playbook. I diagnosed his sales process to so fine tuned, he didn't even know what he was doing, and I was figuring out what he was doing. I'm studying books on neurolinguistic programming, and then I'm going to watch Mike sell. Mike could close like nobody I've ever met to this day. He was unbelievable. So I was just studying his playbook. I was being mentored by Michael Jordan of sales, right? Mike's done Who knows how much? He's done hundreds and hundreds of millions to this day. Ironically, he's in solar. He's
Mm.
in solar. So it's, but I studied him and watched his moves and his playbook, his physiology, what he did with his body, and I just copied him. That very first year, from that 6 month point forward, six figures, just like that. Now Mike was loving it. He put me in front of a group of 45 salespeople. Boom, killed it. I could speak in front of groups. I could talk. I could communicate. I could sell. Mike's loving this. Mike's loving this. 3 years later, we get a letter from our distributor in the alarm systems business. This is going way back in the day. AT&T was a distributor of alarm systems, and they pulled out of the business. And a long story short, we didn't know how to downsize the company. We had 100 employees.
Wow.
We had 3,000 alarm accounts paying $25 a month on 5-year contracts. That makes you a millionaire. That's what we had. We ended up selling everything off for pennies on the dollar when AT&T pulled out. We didn't know how to downsize. We could sell like crazy, but we were not sophisticated enough in business. And so I literally went from millionaire to losing it. So that was like the next phase of adversity. So the first adversity, big adversity, was getting into sales and struggling. Then I had the opportunity. Mike almost took it away from me, fought back on that. Then we built this company with over 100 employees doing, at the time we were doing $8 million in sales. But, the average sale was only $3,000. So that's not a lot of money by today's standards. But back then we were like the top alarm company in all of New England. And so doing $8 million a year and bringing on, 200 accounts a month and doing what we were doing. So it was a big deal, and then we lost it. And that's why I'm such an expert in sabotage, because that was my next level of pain. When I lost that business, I felt like it's the closest thing that I could explain for a man to losing a baby. Like, we don't know what a woman goes through when they lose a baby. But for a man losing a business, that's what it felt like for me. And it was so traumatic for me, Jeffrey. I can remember calling Mike. I was freaking depressed again. Went right back into that depression. This is what Mike says to me. He goes, everybody should fuck up so bad as we did. Like, this is the way he thought. We just built this multi-million-dollar company. It crashed. I'm crashed. And he's like, oh yeah, everybody should screw up so bad. And boom, he was off to the next thing. So I'm like, I got to follow Mike. I got to step up. 6 months later, I'm making more money than I was making with Mike. But
Wow.
at the end of the day, I asked these three questions, Jeffrey. What the hell just happened? How do I prevent this from ever happening again? And I was just like, I became obsessed with, how did I get to this point to begin with? What happened? And how do I prevent that from ever happening again for the rest of my freaking life? And that's why I'm into real estate, because real estate creates permanent wealth. Real estate is the permanent wealth vehicle. If you're in sales, your goal is to take your earnings, convert it into real estate. If you just simply take your earnings and convert it into real estate, you will become financially independent. You will become bulletproof, regardless of what happens. Even in inflationary times, real estate investors, people who know what they're doing, do incredibly well. So that was kind of the thing. And to this day, I'm in the mind at a high level, very, very high level. And I understand how it works at a very high level because of that pain, because of losing that company. At the time, I'm in the burbs, right? I'm in this beautiful neighborhood. Nobody can even figure out how I got there. I got a vowel on the end of my name, Jeffrey. The neighborhood's all Jewish. They're coming over asking my wife, like, what's your husband do for work? Like they're thinking I'm in the mafia, right? And she's like, no, he just sells alarms. They're like, come on, man. He's really good at it. He's really good at it, right? So long story short, I'm in this neighborhood. I'm out in my front yard smoking a cigarette, and I'm asking God. What happened? What happened? What happened? And it was in that time, Jeffrey, I wrote this mission, 1994. This mission, my personal mission statement, to this day is framed. Same mission I've had since 1994. I keep it right here to show people every day. My life has never been the same since I wrote that mission. I've been operating out of that mission since 1994, and I discovered my meaning and my purpose in that time. Up to that point, I was like just selling, following Mike, doing my thing, but I didn't really know what my mission was. When I got my mission, oh, it was over. It was all over but the crying.
What's your mission? Can you share that with us, Mark? Because
Yeah,
you
no,
just said a lot of powerful things, man. You had a setback with Mike, right, where he was cutting your commission, right? You went and made a lot of money, and then your business crashes. That could play on people's. Some people will stay shut down at that moment. They won't bounce back, right? And I like a quote that Inky Johnson. I don't know if you have heard Inky Johnson, but he's a
yes,
phenomenal
I have.
speaker. And he says he's like people don't burn out and quit because of what they do. People burn down and quit because life makes them forget why they do it, right?
Yeah,
They forget their why. And one of my favorite verses in the Bible is James 1, right? Which is consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kind, right? And you faced a lot of trials, right? But those trials made you become stronger, right? Let the testing of your faith produce perseverance. Let perseverance finish his work so you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything, right? So you use those trials and tribulations to make you stronger. So how was that like, man? Because that's so powerful right there. Because a lot of people, when they face those trials, when they face adversary, they shut down. They get in the cocoon, and then they go back to like, you know what? I should have played it safe. I
right.
should have gotten a good playing job instead of working for myself.
Yep. And I went through a lot, man. I went through a lot there. But one thing I was relentless. I was a fighter, man. And when things hit, I was brought up by a brother who was he was bigger, tougher, stronger. The kids in the street were afraid of him, and I had to fight him and deal with him. And I learned how to fight, and I knew how to fight. So when things hit, I would just swing back. I would always swing back, and even though I was fighting my own mental stuff going on inside, and depression and whatever else was going on inside, I didn't give up. I was going to keep going forward. So as hard as it was, I moved forward. But you got to remember now I got the master skill taught by the master technician, and I have diagnosed and I understand the playbook at a higher level than he does. I understand the science of what he does and the moves and the maneuvers. I understand the whole playbook. I can explain it and describe it in a way that it's scientifically and neuroscientifically accurate. We didn't even have neuroscience back then. We didn't have that. So today, all this neuroscience proves what I knew to be true. But we did have neurolinguistic programming. So we did have some behavioral psychology. So I was just studying like a madman. But it was hard, Jeffrey. And to be candid, and one of the things I love about your podcast and what you do is you don't just talk about the good. Even in your solar, we tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. I love that because that's reality. And one of the downsides of personal development and these podcasts and sales and business, it's positive thinking. That is complete bullshit. Okay, to me, that's not even reality. To me, I want to tip the scale with positivity, but I got news for you. If you're not willing to embrace negativity, and if you're not willing to deal with negativity,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're going to do. And to think you can have positivity without negativity is delusional. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I practice what I like to call accurate thinking. I'm a positive thinker, I'm a negative thinker, and because of this makes me an accurate thinker. And so I like to practice accurate thinking. But the adversities from that point forward, although I started crushing it again, making money, the challenges that I faced after losing that business were even far greater. I went through things in my personal life that clearly would have taken people out. I lived through the suicide, and I share this, openly. I love my father dearly. My father was my hero. He was an athlete. He was a musician. He was a historian of the Italian culture. He had his PhD. He was a brilliant guy, but he was depressed. He was depressed my entire life. He ended up taking his life when I was 43 years old, something like this. So I went through that. I've been through divorce. I've been through business partnership breakups. I've been through fraud. I got defrauded over $500,000. Like I went through like a lot of different things in my life, but I'll tell you what, I had my mission, and it's my mission that carried me through everything. And I want to send this message to everybody who's listening. In personal development, they tell you to make a vision board, and that vision board's all about you, the new car, and I've had all the great cars, the house. I live in an amazing house, right? I have all that. But the vision is about you. The mission is about them. And one thing I know for sure is people will do more for others than they will do for their own damn self. So, a vision, a lot of people give up on their vision. A mission, you will crawl through crap to get to. You will not stop. You will be relentless once you are in your mission. So one of the things I teach in coaching, two of the first things I teach people, what are your values? What's your mission? Because I want them to get leverage on themselves so they don't quit and give up, and so that they'll go to new levels. The mission is what has pulled me. I call it pulling power. I use this metaphor, Jeffrey. I coached a guy the other day, and the guy's like a really smart dude. And I literally said to him, "You're smarter than I am, but I got something you don't have. I got pulling power." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Imagine we both owned a farm, and we're way back on the 5-acre farm, and your car breaks down, or your truck. You're back in the farm, your truck breaks down. You only have a John Deere mower to pull you out of there." I go, "I got an 18-wheeler. I can back my 18-wheeler up and pull my car out, right? I got more pulling power." The mission is the pulling power. Once you got the mission, you will overcome anything to get to where you're going. I am so freaking relentless, Jeffrey. Sometimes it scares me. I'm relentless. There can be stuff going on around me. I have 175 employees in my primary business, not my real estate, not coaching, in my primary business. Chaos can be ensuing, and I just go like this. It doesn't, whatever happens, happens. I just keep it moving forward. That's the power of a mission.
That's powerful right there. That's 175 employees, and you still, life could happen. Life could be throwing challenges at you, and you're still moving forward no matter what, with a positive attitude and improving yourself, right? Because not only are you coaching people, but you also have a coach yourself, right? You also pay for coaching yourself. Why do you continue doing that?
I'm relentless with coaching. Nobody wants to pay the amount of money I pay on coaching. 2021, my coaching budget was, I don't know, 100 and a quarter, $125,000, something like that, give or take.
Wow.
I'm afraid to stop, to be honest with you. I don't trust the amygdala part of our brain. I like to call it the trickster. We've called it the mental midget before, but I'm careful with that because someday, some short person's going to listen to the podcast, and then I'm going to be a midget racist. But we also call it the drunk monkey,
Okay.
you know, the mental midget, whatever you call it. But I call it the trickster, and it's the mechanism in your brain. And I'm just like, I'm never going to leave it to chance for as long as I live. I've got, coaches for, emotions, for performance thinking, for real estate, literally for taxes, for my health. Like, I don't play when it comes to coaching. I am always coached. As a speaker, I'm coached. I just always have somebody around me, something going on in the world of coaching. And I'm just the highest level of coachability index. And when I think I'm at the high level, I look at another guy who's at an even higher level of me, and I just go to another level with coaching. And I'm relentless about it. I'll do it for the rest of my life. Life to me is a process where you learn and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I was talking about earlier. The reason people don't succeed financially or in their family or in their health or whatever area of life is because they don't integrate. They don't learn and integrate. If you integrate your net worth, let's just talk about money because you got business people that come to this podcast. But if your net worth is not more this year than it was last year, like, what are you up to? Like, what are you doing? It's like you should be progressing year over year over year. Last year, I made more money in real estate doing nothing. I didn't even lift a finger than I made in my primary business.
Wow.
Made millions of dollars out of real estate. And I kid you not, I barely lifted a finger. And I don't say it to brag, I say it with complete reverence and I say it with complete gratitude. But when you continue to process and grow and integrate and transform, you set up the circumstances in the universe, especially when you're serving other people. You set up the circumstances in what I like to call supply and demand. You put demand on yourself, and all of a sudden the universe supplies beyond your wildest dreams. And so that's kind of like the level that I'm tapped into today.
Yeah.
It's just another level of awareness. And as you continue to serve and bring life, that's why I do podcasts like this. That's why I do interviews. I'm just bringing more life to as many people as I can because it sets in motion causes, and those causes always come back to you. They come back to you from places you don't even expect. Like my primary business, there's some days I dig in that business, like I work it, like I expend a lot of energy in that business. And then I'm making all this money in real estate and I don't even lift a finger. It's like how do you even explain it, you know?
You get it through another channel, right? You're investing it here, but you're getting it through another channel because of the work that you've put in the past. And that's huge, man.
People,
And I gotta say, Mark, because I started jumping into your coaching calls the last couple of weeks, and you're just on another level, man. Like I'm constantly listening to the recordings that you send me, and one of the things that you touched on that I have it in a lot of my notebooks. Put a demand on yourself. When you put a demand on yourself, like things starts getting out your way because now you become disciplined. Now you're changing those habits. You're looking at your blind spots, right? And those are things that you're coaching salespeople and leaders as well. And one thing that we had a conversation that I loved that you touched on, that you're like, you love helping the underdogs, you love helping the people that they're like, oh man, this guy's not gonna succeed in sales. Those are the people that you pour on into it, then you flip it and they become like badasses. Like, how do you do that? How do you bring that greatness out of a person that they've never brought that out?
I absolutely, you don't hear me use the word hate often. Like you'll very rarely hear me use that word. But I got to tell you, I hate bullies. I hate bullies. I was bullied as a kid by my older brother, and I just despise bullies. So when I see an underdog, I know that that person got bullied. And I
Mm.
know that if I can activate their spirit and if I can activate their mission, if I can connect their values, I know I can get them to break through. Like, and I really learned this a lot from Tony Robbins. I have the privilege, I've gone through a ton of his stuff. One of my closest friends speaks on stage with him all the time. I mean, I know his work, but one of the things I admire most about him is his commitment and dedication to break people through. And I've just modeled that. Like if you're in my space, if you're in my metrics, one of two things has happened. You're breaking through, or you're quitting on yourself. So you either quit on yourself or break through. On my end of it, you're breaking through. It's a foregone conclusion in my mind. And so when I see somebody who's struggling, I just relate to it because I go back to my days of struggling, and I know if Mike in the universe didn't intervene for me, I don't know where I would have wound up, Jeffrey. I really don't. It literally could have been jail, because I was very close to a lot of people today. If you were to YouTube some of these people, like, they're all out on YouTube. These are like real, mafia people, and I could have walked into that life like very easily because I grew up with all these people. And so when it got tough, I was just, tempted to do that, but the universe intervened. And so one of the things I want to say is people are addicted to easy. There
Mm-hmm.
ain't no easy on this planet. If you want easy, you got to pray that God brings you to another planet. And when you find out what that planet is, let me know because I really want to go there and relax for a while. But people are addicted to easy, so they don't put demand on themselves. I'll give you an example. I just created a new process. It's called the M3 process, the Tosoni mission process. So not only do I have a mission right here, which is this is what I call the ultimate mission, Jeffrey. I have
Mm-hmm.
a now mission. By the way, this is my basic mission is to inspire, educate, impact, and motivate. So that's essentially the thrust of the mission. I think you asked that earlier. I might have got sidetracked.
Yes.
But now I'm operating under three missions. I have what I call a now mission, I have my ultimate mission, and I have a family mission. Why did I do that? I did that because I understand this law of supply and demand. When you put more demand on yourself, the universe supplies. And so I get this that it's like people are looking for easy. Get out of that freaking mindset that things are going to be easy. It doesn't mean they need to be hard, but it does mean you're going to have to expend effort. It takes energy to create anything, it takes leverage. So if people can get over that addiction to easy, get on your mission, get in your values, you will work like you've never worked before and you'll love doing it. You'll freaking love it. Patrick Bet David, Valuetainment. He
Mm-hmm.
literally said, I heard him in a podcast the other day. He got dragged to the hospital doing a speaking engagement. He goes, if you haven't worked yourself to the bone like that, you're not even working. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are guys who are obsessed with their missions. They're like so deeply into their mission that just nothing will stop them. But I love the underdog and I love the turnaround stories. Like I get a total thrill from it. I love watching other people just write people off like they're just they're messed up. Well, they don't understand what it's like to come up with mental illness, or maybe they came up with no money, or in your case you migrated to this country in your story. Like people go through real struggle. You don't understand the shoes that somebody else walked in. So when I see that wounded person, when I see them, I dig into them, man. I dig into them. So I'm all about turning that around.
Yeah, absolutely, and you do bring the best out of people. You've brought the best out of me every single time that the universe, God has put us in together in a path. I know that we disconnected for a couple years and we reconnected, and it was like we never stopped talking, and it's amazing, man, because you are a true server. You love serving people, and I see it, man. Everything that you do is about serving other people, how to get better, and at the same time, you're getting better, right? Because what you're putting out, you're getting it right back. Because the more that you give, the more that you receive, and that's why you're getting. Now you have. I know. I was watching some of your videos, and you talk about you have 15 streams of income. You have a thriving business, real estate. You're constantly buying buildings, not just one house. He's buying buildings, right? He's buying buildings and he's creating opportunities and living for other people, right? So by him playing a bigger game, now he's giving opportunity to other people. And I want to touch on the easy part because social media and all this. We want instant gratification, and there's a lot of videos. That's why there's so much information right now that you gotta really vet your mentors. You really gotta vet the people that you're being trained by. And that's very, very important because a lot of people will talk about, oh no, this is effortless, everything, life is easy, and then you expect that, and when you don't get that easy stuff, you're like, man, this stuff doesn't work. Life is gonna give you challenges, right? And it's in the challenges that you grow. I read in a book that it said you get more out of your failures than your successes. When you're having a lot of success, you get comfortable, you get lazy, you get complacent. When you're going through setbacks and turbulations, that's when you gotta dig deep and you gotta, man, I gotta make it happen. It's either sink or swim, and I'm gonna make it happen. I'm not gonna fall. So that's very important. You gotta vet the mentors. You gotta know exactly who you're learning from, and you gotta make sure that they have a track record, right? You want to make sure that they're making it happen in their life. So that's why coaching with Mark Tosoni has helped me out tremendously. And I want you to touch on your coaching programs because you're bringing out new coaching programs when it comes to sales. I love the sales, that everything that you teach about sales, embedded commands, the guard down selling is freaking amazing. I transitioned from using the in the alarm industry, and now I'm using it in the solar industry, and it just goes hand in hand. This goes into real estate, this goes into loans, this goes into life insurance, this goes into car insurance, anything, because it's all about communicating. And again, what he said, you got to be sincere with your clients and look out for their best interest. So can you touch on your coaching program, because everybody needs to be part of that coaching program?
100%. Yeah, what I'm up to now is I have a program. It's called Sell Your Way to Success. Double, even triple your income in 90 days or less. And a long story short, the thrust of my coaching is four things. Number one, I help people to become aligned, because most people, the reason that they struggle is because they're out of alignment. What that basically means is they're not operating from their values with a mission. Um, so I help them get aligned. I help them to rewire the way they think. I literally help people on a neuroscientific basis to rewire their brain. They'll never be the same person again. It's just that they just transform, especially if they do the work. So we work on the rewiring. You know, everybody's like into reprogramming. But if you're trying to reprogram your mind over a life that is not built on a mission and over a life that is not aligned with your values, you're kind of working upstream, if you will, or downstream. I take people upstream. My coaching goes all the way to the mouth of the river, all the way up all the way upstream. Alignment, we rewire. Then I teach guard down selling. Guard down selling, what I do that's very different than anybody else out there is I teach sales in a holistic way, mind, body, spirit way. So I teach you the neuroscience of how to get people's guard down. By the way, I didn't even invent the name guard down. One of my guys I mentor, he was making like $500 a week. Now he makes like $60,000-$70,000 a month, pretty regularly. So he one day he's like, yo, you're teaching me how to get the guard down. And I was like, that's it, guard down selling. So that's kind of become my brand now. It's teaching guard down selling. But little did I realize that, like, I wrote this book here, Sell Like Crazy Without Going Insane, in 1998. And this was from studying Mike. So I was with Mike from 92, 93, 94, 95. And I wrote this book in 1998. 3 years later, this book is like got neuroscience all over it. And they didn't even have neuroscience back then. It was just starting out. So when I look back at what I wrote years ago, I already had the distinction. I was so tuned into people because Mike could close, but he was high pressure. And I was very tuned into people energetically. I could sense the way that they felt. And so I literally took what Mike taught me and recreated my own system that was comfortable for me to sell so that I could be comfortable. I couldn't do it the way Mike did it. People would say, do I have to make a decision today? Mike would say, yes, you do. Right? Like, that didn't work for me. That didn't work for me. Like, what worked for me was like, no, you can wait, I can wait. But the burglar is never going to wait. Now,
Back is never wait.
although you don't have to do this today, my question to you is, if you don't do it and God forbid something happens, where does this leave you? Right? So it was just a very different, style. And it was all about bringing that guard down. So I've got a lot of plays in my guard down selling playbook. And here's the feedback that I get from it. I can literally take the smorgasbord of things we do inside of guard down selling. I could take one piece of it, give it to somebody, they go sell right away. It's crazy. Every single they only have fragments of the system. They don't even hear the whole system, and they go out and sell and change their life. So I do that, and then the next level I get into is what I call ultimate influence. And ultimate influence, once I know that one of my students is coming from a good place of heart, I teach them ninja tactics, like total ninja stuff that you'll never hear about, like just ninja influence and persuasion tactics, even so crazy as influencing people without saying a word, just remote influence. Like, and this is crazy, and I know it sounds crazy, but I know how to get people to reply to you. You ever have a customer who doesn't call you back? I know how to get them to respond to you through ultimate influence. There are ways, there are methods, but you got to know what you're doing to do it. So the four levels are alignment, rewiring, guard down selling, and ultimate influence. So essentially, that's what I do in coaching and teach people how to get results, double, triple their income in 90 days or less. Those who stay with me from a year, for a year or more, here's what they wind up with. They go from a mission on commission, and this is my goal for the people I coach, to walk away financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
That's my goal. To go from commission to walk away financial independence, because that's exactly what happened to me. But you got to make the right moves once you get the money. First, you got to master it. What everybody's doing today, people are looking for quick and easy. They're looking to buy these coins, Bitcoin, that coin, this coin. I'm not dogging it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying not to do it. My daughter's husband loves this stuff. But his primary skill is sales, and he makes a lot of money in sales. If you're not making a lot of money yet, the one skill to master is sales. That's it. It's the master skill. And once you master that skill, you can do anything. And sales is not going away. It's changing form, but it's not going away. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
always be here. And that's a really cool thing about sales. Today, you can sell, you could have a remote team of salespeople called funnels. Can you
Right.
imagine? You don't even have to talk to them. So sales is just going to continue to evolve. But at the end of the day, people crave connection with other people. And that's why it's not going to go away. People love people. They like to connect to people now more than ever after COVID. So hopefully
Yeah.
that clears that up. And I'm just creating breakthrough after breakthrough.
100%. So how can people become part of your coaching?
So what they got to do is go to marktosoni.com,
Okay.
which at the moment it's going to be down. It should be up in about 4 or 5 days. It's coming back as a branded coaching website, and should be up in 4 or 5 days. And then what we do is we just do I do a coaching call with them. I'll spend an hour with them. I will break whether they go ahead with the coaching or not. Doesn't even matter to me. What matters is we get a breakthrough. So I want to know what problem they have. I don't care what their problem is in the sales game. No matter any problem on planet Earth in the sales game, give it to me. I'll break you through that problem just like that. Just like that. I've just done it too many times. When you do something thousands and thousands of times, you can see patterns that other people can't see. So I quickly see the pattern. I show you what's going on. We break through it, and it's over. It's that simple. So what I do is I do those one-on-ones with people, and of course, you might start doing some of those one-on-ones as well. And we help people get a breakthrough. And if they want to get involved with the coaching, great. And if for some reason they don't, that's okay too. Hopefully, we'll see them in the future.
Absolutely. What about Mark, someone that is looking of building a team, right? A leadership, influencing, because leadership is nothing more, nothing less. Maxwell always says is influencing. And sometimes people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. So how can someone benefit that is building a team, maybe in real estate, maybe in any line of work, right? Because it's that's leverage as well, right? Helping other people get to their levels, helping them break through at the same time they benefit, everybody wins. And how would they benefit part of your coaching? What would they get out of it?
Team builders, and I have team builders in the coaching program, from Primerica to, team leaders in the alarm business, solar business, home improvements, windows, whatever it is they're up to selling. But the manager, the leader has got to increase their skill level, because
Mhm.
today it's not enough to be a manager. You got to be a coach. So today you got to be a manager and a coach. Pearson's law says, what you measure gets managed. So if you're not
Mhm.
measuring, you're not managing. But that's not enough. You got to be a coach today. You need level 10 solutions to their level 3 problems. And you got to be able to bring the solution. If you don't bring the solution, they're going to be working for your competitor. So in my own company, we've just created an environment of personal development. We
Mhm.
hit the Inc. 5000 in less than 3.5 years at number 14. So I know that
Outstanding.
culture makes a huge difference. And our people, they don't want to go anywhere. They stay. Other people offer them more money. There's different kind of deals in the solar business. and they stick around because of the experience they're getting and the growth that they're getting. There are things that matter to people more than money. In fact, in surveys with employees, money is like fifth on the list. It's not first on the list. You think they want money, and yes, they want money, but there are other intrinsic things that are really really important to people. So again, if you want to investigate it, you could go to marktosoni.com, and we could definitely have a conversation, a one-on-one. There'll also be, signups on the page as well if anybody, chooses to get involved with us. But the sales managers, I love working with teams. What I'm seeing happening in the coaching, Jeffrey, is that people are going to use me as the surrogate coach. So I'm sort of teaching them guard down selling, but you can bring me in or bring your group to me as part of our group. Now I'm the surrogate coach. So if you're
Mm.
not the coach you want to be yet, you can leverage me to be your coach for pennies on the dollar, compared to the value that I deliver. So now you can work with me. You learn my plays, you learn my moves, you learn guard down selling. But in the meantime, I'm coaching your people as we go. But I'm going to tell you, don't do that. Try to do that from an unsincere place. And I see people do this. They want to learn my playbook from a place of manipulation. It
Mhm.
does not work. I can tell you right now, it doesn't work. So if you want to come coach with me, there's a couple things. Number one, plan to get your mission. If you don't want your mission and you're not here to serve, you're only here to serve yourself, we're not going to be a good fit. I like people who's got the balance. You're there to serve yourself and you're there to serve others. It's both. You're both altruistic, meaning we centric, and you're also narcissistic in a good way, I centric. So it's not that you've forgotten yourself, but you don't forget others. There's got to be a balance there. So I like working with people like that. I also like working with people who are committed to their own mastery. So they're
Mm.
into their growth and their development, and they're willing to do things and look within in areas that other people just don't look. And that really is the difference between a rep on the sales side, somebody who makes 150,000 bucks a year and somebody making over a million. I hear these other sales trainers out there, I'll get you to over $1 million a year. And maybe they will. My question is, are you going to sustain it? What are
Mm.
you going to do when the trickster kicks in? Because you all got a trickster. Everybody's got a trickster. Who's going to help you with that now? Only a handful of people on planet Earth know what to do with the trickster. I am either that person personally, or I can promise you I'm studying with that person who's better than me at it at any given time. And there's only a handful of them on the planet. People don't know what to do with this damn amygdala. And they write it off and they'll call it, oh, I failed the market, this, they'll make all these excuses. But at the end of the day, the adage that you are your own worst enemy, nothing could be truer,
Mhm.
because in your mind is the enemy of progress. It truly is not your enemy, but it is the enemy of progress. It is the enemy of wealth creation, because there's this mechanism inside your brain that is saying, let's stay the same.
Right.
I don't want to go to that new one. You
Yeah.
see, so very, very few coaches know how to handle the sales part of it along with the alignment and rewiring part of it. And that's what I'm most pleased with myself, that I've been able to get all those components down, bring it together, and be able to share that with the world. And that's my life's work, and that's what I do. Just a quick plug, too. Most recently, I co-authored a book with the famous author Ben Gay III. He's the oldest living sales legend on planet Earth. He literally was Zig Ziglar's sales manager. This is
Wow.
this is Ben Gay III. He wrote the book called The Closers, and I just co-authored book 5 of The Closers with him. It'll be out either May 10th or June 12th, and it's called Master the Closers Mindset. So here it is, a book, helping people to align. Jeffrey, I can remember back in the day before Mike came around, I was studying the closers because I didn't have a coach. So I would go out in the day and miss deals and get beat up in sales, come back at night, study the closers, write some closes, go back the next day and use the closes. Come back at night, miss sales, look through the book. I studied his book for 2 years. Today we're co-authors. So it's pretty awesome.
Real freaking awesome, man. That's phenomenal right there. I I just want you guys to everybody that is listening to everything that Mark just talked about. Like, he's talking about you doing the work, right? In order for you to serve other people, you can't give what you don't have. So you're the most important project. Like, you gotta make sure that you work on yourself and, like he said, be in alignment, rewire yourself, learn the sales techniques, because by you doing that, then you're gonna be able to serve other people better, right? That's how you become a person of value to other people. And again, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And if you're coming sincere from the heart that you care about people, and if that's part of your mission, like he said, that's gonna get you going. That's gonna get you going when you don't want to get up, right? Today, man, I've been at the office since 5 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to be here. I was excited about it. It is an honor to interview my coach right here, right? He has helped me tremendously. So again, you want to make sure that you vet your mentors, you know who you're working with, and if you feel that you could benefit from his coaching, make sure that you reach out to him. We're gonna be putting the links below. We're gonna be putting his Instagram, everything, so you guys could be in communication with him. Make sure that you guys follow him because again, you want to learn the right way of selling, the right way of communicating, the right way of adding value to people, and at the same time you winning. You got to be part of his coaching program. It's going to be an amazing, it's going to allow you again to elevate your game. And he has already talked about it. He has proven students that he's only giving them one part of the coaching and they go out and implement that, and then they come back with X amount of sales when maybe they haven't even made sales in weeks or months. Now they use that little nugget, and it just shifted everything for them. So again, it could be one thing that you guys listen from this podcast that could change everything from you, right? Life is gonna happen, right? And it's your job to become better every single day and have that positive attitude. Yeah, life is gonna be, it's not easy. Like he said, it's not easy. And it's not for the weak, that's for sure. So you gotta build that rhino skin, man. So when life hits at you, it's like, why not, right? Why not me, man? If it's happening, it's because it's gonna allow me to grow. You gotta change your perspective. Your perspective is gonna drive your performance, and that's one thing that what part of his coaching that I've learned is like when you control your thoughts, you control your feelings. When you control your feelings, your actions are completely different, and when your actions are different, the results is just it's just completely different. So I'll give you an example. If you're having negative thoughts, that negative thought is gonna get you in a negative feeling in a negative environment. By doing that, you're gonna take negative action, or probably you won't even take an action because now you're just stuck in negativity. And as a result, you're gonna get more of those negative thoughts. So that's why it's so important to rewire yourself because you're the best project. And that's one thing that I was reading the other day. Your five next moves from Patrick McDavid. You touch on Patrick, and that's one of the things that he touched on. Man, he's like, instead of reading so many books of biographies of other people, he's like, the person that you need to be studying the most is yourself. What triggers you? What gets you happy? What fires you up? Right? Mark touched on he was angry and he used anger to get him going, but at the same time it's not sustainable. So he had to understand how he operated, and so he could move faster, right? So it's very important that you get a coach because his coaches are going to allow you to see your blind spots. Coaches are going to allow you to push a little bit harder. It's going to have that accountability, and a lot of people don't like having coaches because they don't want that accountability. They don't want to have that person that you're all right. What did you do? You said you were gonna do this. You didn't do it. Why didn't you do it? And a lot of people are afraid of that. Don't be afraid of that. If you again, if it's part of you wanting to help out other people, if you want to excel, if you know deep down inside that there's so much more that you could give, trust me, man, you need coach, you need support, you need to be around the right proximity. So Mark, last few words, anything that you want to share before we end this call?
Yeah, a couple things I want to just point out because we talk about like negative thoughts. I want to just really explain in a moment what that is. A
Yes.
negative thought, what we call a negative thought, is just self protection. That's all. Your trickster, the amygdala, is just trying to protect you from a perceived future painful event. It's just doing its job. So you don't want to fight against negative thinking. What you want to do is you want to learn to balance it. And so
Mm.
today, when you talk about your thoughts create your feelings, actions, results, right? I use the results cycle in my coaching. But at the end of the day, I don't sit here and wrestle with my thoughts. There's 50,000 thoughts a day, but I do know I do have tools. If I notice that my thoughts are being non-supportive like that, based on where I want to go, based on what my mission is, I'll just sit down with one of my tools and boom, just bang out the work. I'll just do something. It's like reps and sets and get my mind to balance out. Just get it to balance. As long as you keep getting it to balance, to balance, to balance. The goal is neutral. The goal is neutral. But personal development tells everybody positive. You got to be positive. Norman Vincent Peale? He wrote the book, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. And somebody asked his wife one day, why did your husband write that book anyways? And she told him, because he was the most negative guy on planet Earth. That's why that's why I wrote the book. He was fighting with his thoughts. You can't have positive without negative. I'm not telling you not to think positively. I'm just telling you can't have one without the other. You got to be innately aware that there's both going on at all times,
Mm.
right? And that's just the way that works. So that's one thing I want to say. The other thing is that my experience is that life can come with ease. It's more likely to come with ease when you're in your values and your mission. But that doesn't mean you're not going to exert effort. You will exert some effort. But there are some things that will happen that will be absolutely effortless. There will be no effort. And so it's amazing that, we have all these beliefs, like my real estate. I put the effort in back then. Last year, there was no more effort. The effort was over, but it continued to compound and grow. So that can happen for you. I'm just saying that to say a lot of people say you got to work, you got to grind, you got to do this, and then the other side says, oh, you don't have to do nothing. You can just sit in a track. And the truth of the matter is, you can actually do both,
You gotta do
right?
both, right?
You're going to have to go to work. When you're in your values and in your mission, you won't mind going to work. You will do what you value. A lot of people, Jeffrey, say, I'm a procrastinator. I hear that all the time. I don't follow through. It's complete bullshit. You
Mm.
follow through on what is valuable to you. You,
100.
you don't procrastinate what is valuable to you. You do what you value most. The problem is you're not aligned with your values. So once I help people get aligned, once we get them in their mission, all of a sudden they're doing stuff. For salespeople who are afraid of rejection, I can show you how to overcome rejection. I kid you not, in 60 seconds. Like 60 seconds. It's the simplest thing in the world to overcome. I struggled with it for freaking years. And it's like, oh, if I just make that shift, I'm rejection proof. So it's like I can't even be rejected. And if you did reject me, I get excited about it. Like, right? Instead of it disempowering me, so I can get myself to take the actions that are necessary to get to it, to get to where it is I really want to go. So other than that, one takeaway for everybody: raise your coachability index. If you're low on the coachability scale and you've not found mentorship, whether it be with myself, Jeffrey, or someone else, my experience tells me I don't go it alone. I have partners in every single venture that I'm in. I have partners. A lot of people say I don't like partners. I always have partners. I have smart partners. I have wealthy partners. I have partners who are smarter than me. That's what I like. So, coachability index. When you raise your coachability index and you become a person who's highly coachable, you will attract to yourself people who want to be with you because you bring something very valuable to the table. If you're not attracting those type of situations, you got to look at who you're being, and all you got to do is make a few shifts. It's not impossible. I thought I was doomed. I thought I would be stuck with depression, bipolar tendencies, mental illness. That's all I was raised around. I thought that was my reality for the rest of my life. If I can break through this, I shouldn't be where I am right now. If you saw my neighborhood and my house, you'd be like, and then if you saw my house I was born and raised in, where I came from, where the family came from, I shouldn't even be here. So I walk through my house every day, room by room. I'm so grateful. Like, I'm so great. I'm so grateful to be in this office. I am so freaking grateful. At the end of the day, my ultimate message is this, Jeffrey. The reason people struggle is because they haven't learned to love and be grateful for all of life. Life happens on the way. It is not in your way. It seems like it's in your way. Your trickster is telling you it's in the way. The parts you struggle with the most, you have not learned yet to love. When you learn to love those parts of you, you open up energy. And when you are grateful for those parts of you and those experiences that you've had, and like you say, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In my case, the guy who defrauded myself and other people out of $524,000. I'm so freaking grateful for that guy. He's in jail. I'm so grateful for him because I'm out of jail and I'm completely financially independent because of him. That was the last dime I ever invested in any bullshit. From there forward, it was real estate. I'm so grateful for that man. You got to find a way to shift the way you think. Dr. Wayne Dyer said it best. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. You said it earlier, Jeffrey, perception. Just so you know, perception is at the mouth of the river. That's upstream, not downstream. So when you're working on your personal growth, go upstream to perception. Shift the way you see things. Remember my mentor said everyone should fail so bad? That's perception. He was teaching me how to perceive as a high performance thinker. And when you become a high performance thinker or an accurate thinker, you become an accurate thinker, your thinking becomes high performance. And so you got to learn to love the things that you hate, that you resent, that you're ashamed of. If you're riding in shame and resentment, it makes your money go away from you. I could go on and on all day, Jeffrey, but that is my final message. Learn to love and be grateful for everything in your freaking life and watch how wealthy you can actually become.
That was freaking awesome, man. Life happens on the way, not in the way. I love it, man. I love that, Mark. Thank you so much, man. For everybody that is listening, man, make sure that you guys share this podcast with a bunch of people because everybody needs to listen to this podcast. Everybody needs to be part of Mark Tosoni's coaching. So with that said, make sure that you guys, if you guys have not subscribed to our channel, make sure that you guys click the subscribe button, turn on the notification, click the like, share it, because that helps the algorithm and it helps other people see this podcast. The more people that see it, the more people that we're going to be able to impact in our community. Mark Tosoni, thank you so much for being part of this coaching. I mean, part of this interview. I'm so excited, man, because I took so many notes. It was like part of a coaching for me right now. This is a coaching call, man. So if you guys want to be part of this, make sure that you guys reach out to Mark, man. Mark Tosoni, thank you so much, my man.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Jeffrey.
it.
Keep doing the good work, brother. Open up
Thank
that
you.
energy for yourself. I love it. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.